Hello, class. Dr. Beverly here. In this video, we're going to be looking at a very important topic in this class. It corresponds heavily with Chapter 10 in your textbook, which covers the idea of exploring, discovering, identifying client strengths and how those strengths can be used to help people overcome obstacles in their life. This is basically an approach that's based on the premise of what's right with you will help with what's wrong with you. You know, what's right with you will help with what's wrong with you. And so, as mentioned in other videos, this is not a substitute for the chapter readings. So please stay up on those. But when you look at chapter 10, you'll notice that it covers a lot of the same themes that we're looking at in this video. Now, the reason why I mentioned it's a crucial topic in this course is there was a seminal work in our field, a book that's in it's in multiple editions now, known as The Heart and Soul of Change. And what researchers have discovered is the biggest factors that make counseling effective. In other words, when counseling or a behavioral health service is effective, what makes it work? And something that you've seen in a prior video is the four common factors. And you'll notice that according to the researchers, they attribute 40% of what makes counseling effective is client factors, extra therapeutic factors. And what that really is, it's client strengths. It's things that are unique to the person that's getting the service. When someone heals or gets better, a big portion of that is their own unique traits and characteristics and people in their life, those kinds of things. And we're going to look at that closely in this video because this video deals with that 40%. The biggest thing that makes counseling effective, it's not the therapeutic model or theory you're using or even your techniques. In fact, you can see model and techniques that accounts for about 15% of what makes counseling effective. Overwhelmingly, what makes it effective are client factors or strengths that that person has that maybe are even kind of dormant, or they don't see some of it. They don't realize how strong they are, and counseling can help tap into those strengths. I'll show you some ways that you can do it. Chapter 10, by the way, has a number of different questions and stuff that you could ask to help tap into this. Now, it's worth noting, you see there that 30% of what makes counseling effective, if you will, according to the researchers, is the therapeutic alliance. You see that down on the bottom right hand of the screen. That's the relationship between the counselor or the helping professional and the client. To what extent people feel listened to, understood, and validated, that kind of thing. Now, that's worth mentioning because the therapeutic relationship's even more important than the theory or therapeutic model that you're using, right? If you're psychodynamic or cognitive behavioral or whatever, there are actually over 1,000 studies published that show the therapeutic alliance or the relationships more important than your techniques and your interventions. So that's also worth knowing, right? But we're going to focus on those client strengths. Now, I'm going to tell you something that since you've had this class, there is a mistake that you should not make in your counseling work. And I'll tell you, one thing that really grinds my gears is how people almost always do this wrong. I've been a clinical supervisor or clinical director in multiple different settings, inpatient, outpatient, intensive outpatient. And I can tell you that overwhelmingly, most people do this wrong, and they're doing what are known as descriptive strengths. In fact, most people do this so wrong that they'll actually ask a client, "What are your strengths?" I've seen that countless. It's on assessment forms, client strengths. And then what the counselor will do, so ridiculous. You have to identify the client's strengths, and what they'll do is they'll say, what are your strengths? So stupid. Like, if you are going to school to learn how to do this stuff, you shouldn't ask that question, because anyone could ask that question. Counseling skills are where, in a dialogue with the client, you're able to listen to heroic themes, even in a story filled with pain. And then you're able to tap into that and help the client see that. When they're written down, most counselors write this in a way that's so poor and not helpful. I'm not trying to sound judgmental here. I've been training counselors at the master's level every year since 2008. And I'm happy that when folks go through my courses, they can get a little better at this. And it's because something I'm really passionate about. And I just got so sick of seeing things like Johnny likes to listen to music. All right. If you're watching this video, I have a question to you or for you. Do you like to listen to music? Almost everyone likes music. The hell does that even do? And also, I don't know if that's a strength. What if Johnny is in therapy for aggression and severe problems with anger and emotional regulation, and maybe he likes to listen to certain music before he goes and kicks someone's ass or something? Like, I don't know or maybe maybe his thing is addiction and he's dealing with substance use, and listening to music is his favorite thing to do when he's getting high. And listening to music right now is almost kind of a trigger because it makes him want to get loaded. In other words, just listening to music itself is not only very generic and kind of something that most people would endorse, but it may not even necessarily be something that's helpful with regards to the reason why that person's in counseling. Now, I got some good news for you. You can typically change a descriptive strength into a functional strength with just adding a couple of words. So descriptive strengths are just a laundry list of hobbies and interests. Johnny likes to listen to music. Johnny likes long walks on the beach. It almost sounds like a dating profile. It's just a list of things, man. Functional strengths. What are those? Functional strengths is where we identify a strength that, according to the client, is something that might be able to help them overcome what they're going through in some way. It's something that has maybe been helpful in the past as well. So let's take Johnny likes to listen to music, and let's say this a kid like with severe anger issues, and a functional strength could be Johnny likes to listen to music to calm down. And that's 3 words that were added, and now it's functional. Now it's something, in this case, it's going to be an action or an activity in their life. And it's not just something they do, but it's something they do that can help them with what they're struggling with. And so what we want to do when we're doing strength-based counseling is we want to tap into client strengths. What does TAP mean? It's an acronym for traits, activities, and people. And so with Johnny, we just saw an example of an activity, listening to music. Maybe the counselor asked him, are there ever some things that you do that might help the anger go down just a little? And if they mention this, it's the music, it's like, oh, there's an activity. Now, if they mention talking to my older brother really helps a lot, he doesn't want me to make the same mistakes he did. Well, that's people in his life. And maybe that came from a question of like, is there anyone in your life you're able to talk to about this, or who has helped you through it a little, even if it's just like someone that makes you feel like listened to or something. And you go, oh, my brother, and he starts talking about that. Now I found a strength, a functional one. It's a person. I might write in the assessment or something, Johnny's older brother, Derek, is helping him with his anger and is one of the few people he can talk to right now. And now you got to remember why we want to write this stuff down. Let's say you watching this video right now, you do the assessment, and then I'm the person that they assign the case to, and I'm going to do therapy. That's not uncommon, where someone else might have done the assessment, and now you're going to do the sessions. That means you're going to read their work. You're going to look at what they have in there. And if they have Johnny likes to listen to music, that's not very helpful. Even if they said Johnny loves his family, okay, maybe his older brother is someone he gets high with all the time and, commits violent acts with. But if I read in there, Johnny likes to listen to music to calm down. And I also read in there that his brother is one of the few people he can talk to and is helping him with this. That's worth noting. If I see that in your chart, now I know of a person and also an activity that are really unique to this individual. And so let's look at an example. And this is one I see in charts all the time, all the time. It'll be so and so believes in God or is a spiritual person or something. I looked it up. According to a Gallup poll in like 2022, it's over 80% of Americans believe in God. That's not a unique thing. Overwhelming majority of people believe in God. So that doesn't really tell me much. I could give you examples if you want to know in a personal conversation of times where someone's religion was actually not a strength. That doesn't mean spirituality is not a good thing, but it just means it's not something generic and universal that everyone experiences the same. And Kelly believes in God. There's a way that if that's a descriptive strength, right? Ooh, I kind of whistled there. Sorry about that. That's a descriptive strength. A functional strength, let's look at TAP. What would be a trait? Kelly's faith in God is why she will never commit suicide. Whoa, that's a little bit deeper, isn't it? I mean, just seeing someone believes in God is one thing. If I see that their faith is something that it helps them, it could be even something like because of her faith, Kelly believes everything happens for a reason and that she can get through this. So her faith can help her believe that there's, a higher power that is giving her a lot to handle right now, but that there's a bigger plan at play. What would be an activity? Doing her daily Bible reading helps with her depression. Praying the rosary every morning helps with her anxiety. Right? I'm just coming up with that one off the top of my head, and you can see where that's an actual activity. Not that they just believe in God, but this is something they do that might help a little bit. Look at the P, people. The youth pastor at Johnny's church is a big part of his treatment or is a big supportive force in his life. The Kelly example, attending the Wednesday evening Bible study group is a big part of her healing. So you could talk about people. If it was an addiction, you could find traits, activities, attending meetings. That would be an activity. Attending AA meetings helps George with his avoid relapse. People, George's sponsor with AA is a huge part of his recovery. So these are examples where someone else could look at what you wrote and you're really giving them a lot, not just generic descriptives of strengths, but rather talking about traits, characteristics, activities, behaviors, or people in the client's life that can help them overcome what they are presenting you with. So there's a lot of good questions outlined like in chapter 10 on how to identify client strengths. Here's some that you could use. This comes from solution-focused therapy, an approach to therapy that really rests on the idea that what's right with you will help with what's wrong with you. And certain questions like, so with this depression, how do you get through each day? You made it to this appointment today. A lot of people couldn't even get to the appointment because of their depression. How did you do that? Even if someone says on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best and 1 being it's so bad I want to die, if the client says they're a 3, you can ask them what keeps you from being a 2 or a 1. how are you at a 3 instead of a 2 or a 1? And they might say, well, my kids. I know I would never take my own life because of them. I have responsibilities in my life and I don't want to do that to them. That's stuff I've heard from clients before. You'll hear from clients, and it's a real crappy time in their life right now. But if they're a 3 on a scale of 0 to 10 or whatever, they're not a 2. They're not a 1. We don't want them to stay at a 3. But the fact of the matter is, what makes them a 3 instead of a notch below? And that's where we can explore that with them, right? That we're going to tap into their strengths. It's going to be some traits, activities, or people in their life that are helping them slip down. Now, when you are struggling with identifying strengths in the current situation, the what keeps you going, even though you're, dealing with this, you can explore other problems they've overcome before. You can tell them, hey, I know this ain't your first rodeo. This ain't the first time you've suffered before with something. I noticed that even though you're dealing with depression now, you said you used to struggle with alcoholism, but you haven't had a drink in 5 years. That's actually a client I was working with where they had horrible depression, but they were also in recovery from alcohol use disorder or alcoholism, and they had been clean or sober or whatever for like 5 years. That's a big freaking deal. So when I with this client, you could say, yeah, I noticed that the depression's really bad now, but you've also overcome some things in the past. How'd you get through that? Alcohol addiction is one of the hardest things for people to overcome. Who was your greatest support? How did they help? How did you manage to overcome your addiction? Other people I know, they haven't been able to do it yet. You managed to do that. And what are you listening for? You're listening for traits, activities, and people. So even if you are having a hard time helping the client identify strengths in this current moment, talking to them about other things they've had to overcome is really helpful in terms of tapping into those strengths. Excuse me. So this concludes our review of strength-based services, the right and the wrong way. I hope this has been a helpful video, and I hope that it helps Chapter 10 become an even more meaningful read. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything in the class, please don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime. Take care.